Hello. I've got to cover this. I really have to. It's too big of a story not to cover. And it epitomises everything that is wrong about females in pastorship. Now, before you jump on the wagon and say, Dan, you're being sexist, blah, 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 I just want to be biblical and 100 on this, okay? 1 Timothy 2:11, women are not to exert authority over men. Paul said it for a reason. He also said it in Timothy as well. And there's a reason for that. It's because of order. Who is head of a household? A man. Why should a man be head of the church? Because the church is the bride of Christ. Yeah? Christ himself is male. Yeah? Christ himself is headship. Apostles were male. And we're led to believe that this woman, Mariann Budde, or whatever her name is a successor from the 12 apostles because she's had some type of ordination and a title below her name. It's insane. The woman is an extreme left, arrogant, obnoxious, LG blah 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 affirming, heretical, dare I say it, witch. And these people must be riddled out of all episcopalship, Church of England or otherwise. I mean, what is it? This I can't even say it. The Episcopalian Church in America, which is meant to be part of the Anglican Communion. Basically the Church of England in America. And they've got that as bishop in Washington. You know, one of the biggest primate seats in America. They've given it to her. It's just shocking. And I can only feel how uncomfortable it must have been for Mr. Trump to go through that. Along with J.D. Vance and a few others. Because it was so condescending to talk down at him with so-called spiritual authority. Lady, listen to yourself. You have no spiritual authority. Read the scriptures. You're in the position you are in purely to box tick. Purely to make it look like we live in an inclusive society. You are there for no other reason. I mean, I saw footage of this woman at the George Floyd protest a few years ago. And she was cursing, shouting, even though she had a mask. We all knew who you were because you had your dog collar on, darling. And she was basically saying, oh, Trump's got to be out. He's an indictment. He's awful for America. You know, it's his fault that black people are oppressed and persecuted. And when you ask most of black Americans, they will say Trump's done more than what Barack Obama did in his 8 years. Trump did more in his 4 years than Barack Obama did in his 8 years. So that tells you everything to know. You know, and it's a virtue signalling mogadon. A woman who is just abhorrent, really. I can't think of any other word. She really needs our prayers. But this is the woman that did that. And it doesn't shock me that she used a church service, which was meant to be multi-faith, right, as a gesture for Trump's inauguration to give him hope and faith and bless him through you know, through the upcoming 4 years. But instead it turned out to be a political speech. It's just not on. Absolutely not on. Church and politics should not be together. Certainly not in America. Can somebody remind me? The Constitution. You go back to Franklin, who wasn't actually a Christian. He was a deist. He wasn't a Christian. But he knew the importance of not having church and state integrated together. They're a separate thing. You know, America lives by natural law, by common law. Yes, it's a Christian country, and America understands that. And Christianity does safeguard a lot of the laws over there. But as a country that's majority Baptist anyway, I do find it odd that Trump decided to go to the cathedral. I know it's on the doorstep of the White House. I get that. And I know it's very prestigious. It's a lovely looking building. But surely, Mr. President, you knew you were walking into Satan's den. Because these people are not of God. They are wolves in sheep's clothing. There is no question there. You know, first she goes on about the children that Trump must be accepting of transgendered and gay children. Listen to me. Please tell me, darling, if you're watching this. You're probably not, but I wish you were watching this. But somebody tell me who's on her side, actually. I'm sure there's a few that are on her side. Somebody tell me how a child, because she didn't specify the age, is meant to know they're gay in the first place. How are they meant to know? How is a child meant to know he's in the wrong body? Or she's in the wrong body? I don't think they can until they fully go through puberty and can make an informed, consensual decision. And by the way, that should be beyond the age of 16. And well done for Mr. Trump for stopping these puberty blockers. They are abhorrent. So, I'm sorry, darling, that Trump's not promoting your agenda. But you have to ask yourself, why would he? You know, Trump might not be the epitome of what a faithful Christian looks like. You know, he's not squeaky clean by a long shot. And yes, he's a sinner. But at the same time, I think he knows the importance of family. I think he knows the importance of good, strong community relations. He knows the importance of patriarchy, that's for sure, because he is a real man. And you see that in everything he does. He doesn't back down. He's not a wimp. He took a bullet. You know, that didn't even push him off his stride. He was back the next day still campaigning when most people would have gone into a shell. You know, and he's a man who's slowly coming to God. He admitted himself, divine revelation. You know, God spared him his life. He admits that. He knows that. But no, you could have highlighted the great work that the Lord's done protecting Trump. But no, instead, you try and question the Lord's sovereignty and the Lord's divinity. Do you think God made a mistake pushing that bullet out the way? You arrogant, silly old woman. Silly old woman. I mean, you know, in fact, when I first saw you, I thought you were a guy. Not because of the short hair, but you just seem quite manly. So maybe you've got some issues there that need confronting. But don't deflect them on the presidency. It's just not right. Mariann Budde or Buddha or whatever you want to call yourself. It's just not right. And it was very disappointing to see this. I don't know how the Episcopalian Church has dropped to this low. I don't know the politics within the church, but it's frightening. And not only that, she went on to talk about immigration, and I agree, she has a point. As a Christian country, migrants should be treated with a bit more love and compassion. I'm all for that. If somebody's getting terrorized in their own country and they've come to America for refuge and safety, I applaud anybody who is prepared to help them. But, and it comes with a big but, there are limits. You cannot run a country with an open border. Do you think the Vatican State would get rid of all their Swiss guards, take down the wall and leave their borders open? Do you really think they would do that? The so-called headquarters of Christianity. No, sorry, I shouldn't say that. The headquarters of the Roman Catholic Church. They wouldn't, would they? Do you think Israel would get rid of their borders? Can you imagine if Israel got rid of its borders? It would get obliterated in a minute. With all the Islamic countries surrounding Israel, you think it would last 5 seconds? No. At the end of the day, with what happened recently in England, you've probably heard, a guy called Axel, whatever his name is, a Welsh migrant, stabbing 3 innocent children at a Taylor Swift party, a kids' party, almost murdering 10 others. Thanks be to God they survived. But it was a bloodbath. It was like something out of a horror movie. And with our country actually protecting this guy, and us only recently finding out that he was actually a terrorist, of course America going to be concerned with security risks. They've experienced 9/11, which is probably the worst atrocity to ever happen in the history of terrorism. Shocking. So of course they're going to have secure borders. They don't want drug cartels. They don't want sex trafficking, prostitution, children groomed. They don't want any of that. And of course Trump is going to have borders, and it's actually biblical. It talks about it in the Old Testament. Did God not protect his chosen people? You know, that there were tribes for a reason. And every tribe had their portion of land. It's not racist to protect your community. America is a large, multicultural community. A country built on immigrants. They seem to forget that. So it's probably the least racist country in the world. Yes, they had the atrocities of slavery, and that was awful, awful. I'm not denying the racist past of America. But when you look at it now, from the outside, it does not look even the slightest bit racist. So again, I put to you, Mariann Budde, Buddha, why are you virtue signaling and saying that Trump is unchristian for having stringent, safe borders? Let's talk about the greater good, shall we? Protecting children, families, that's what you care about, Budde? Is he not doing that? Shocking. But I'm not shocked to see this, because it's what's expected of a woman that's in a high position. Because what's happened is she doesn't have the ability to compose herself and rationalize things. She goes with emotions, and it's apparent in the way she delivered her speech. It was very emotional. You could tell she had a personal gripe against Trump. And look, women are smarter than men, because women can probably do 3 or 4 things at once. Men can't. Women are better at raising children. Women are better at doing nails. There's a lot of things women are better at than men at doing. I'm not questioning that. They do better in exams than men. But when it comes to leadership, strong leadership, God appointed men. That's why he chose 12 apostles. Mary Magdalene, as great as she was not given the apostolic gifts to do miracles and things like that. You know, This is why women shouldn't be in leadership, guys. And I know there's plenty of male virtue signalers, left liberals as well. It's not just a woman thing, of course. I know that. But let's be real. The majority of the woke stuff in the Church of England is coming from women. And that's a fact. Because there is an agenda. You know, I think sometimes women want to overcompensate. Sometimes power gets to women's head because they feel what they haven't got in strength, they have to have in status. And you're seeing this in the church. You know, I do think that theologically, not only is it unbiblical to have women in these senior high positions, I don't see it consistent with scripture. You know, you could argue, oh, scripture was written 2,000 years ago, Dan. You know, get with modern times, you know, it's equal opportunity now. But when you think about the priesthood and you go through the Old Testament, it was all a male order from Melchizedek to Aaron to Levi. It was all men all the way through. And the sacrifice at the altar was by a man. And when we present the Lord's Supper as a Eucharist, a communion, that is an atonement. Now, whether you believe it's symbolic or transubstantiation, we don't need to go into that, okay? But you cannot tell me that it is not a man's job to do that sacrifice at the altar, symbolically or otherwise, because it is a priestly duty, priesthood. It's a continuation. I don't believe it just stopped in the apostolic age. No, I think apostolic succession still goes on to this day. I think a lot of people have apostolic gifts, and I don't think it's just confined to priests, by the way, where I differ from my Catholic brothers and sisters, you know, but that's fine. We're all allowed to have an opinion. But I don't believe, as much as I believe women can have gifts, spiritual gifts, whether that's tongues, prophesying, women have a lot of gifts. But in the priesthood, no. Because a priest, well, in Catholic theology, a priest is a mediator between the congregation and God. Okay, that's why they conduct confession, persona Christi, right? Now, I can't take that angle because I know I've got a lot of evangelical brothers and sisters on that watch my channel. And even though as an Anglican, I'm sort of in the middle between the two, I can see a side for both. And I have to say that if the sacrifice is presented and the person is to personify Christ, and that's not to be Christ, that's blasphemous, but to represent him, and if it's to be delivered in a spiritual way, so i.e. doesn't have to be necessarily the body and the blood of Christ, it could be the spiritual presence of Christ, right, which a lot of Protestants believe as well, then yes, it has to be a man. Because, like I said earlier, Jesus is the head of the church. We are the bride of Christ. For that union, there has to be a man mediating the two. Whether it's spiritual, symbolic, or transubstantiation. Okay? And that's my view on it. So you can, whatever angle you come at me, whether you come at it from a biblical angle or from an angle of just pure consistency across the Old and New Testament, I will always favour male pastorship. And I think there's such a strong case, it's blinding. Absolutely blinding. But that's my take on it, guys. Look, put on your comments if you think I'm wrong and you think women should be able to hold positions. Now, I'm open to women being preachers on the pulpit. Even though Paul actually says women should be silent in church, I don't have an issue, because women teach kids in Sunday school. So if a woman wants to preach, fine. But if it's a woman's head of a church, I do think it should be, I don't think that should be allowed in any church. Okay? And certainly not bishop, because bishop, she would be above about 25 priests in her diocese. Most of them being male. So that is a no-no. So 100% not bishop, priest. I'm not too sure on either, to be honest, but I'm open to that discussion. I'm open to that discussion. And yes, I think women should be allowed to preach if it's a lay person. But that's it. They should not preside over the sacraments, because I've just established that. You're mediating between God and the congregation when you do the sacraments. But give the video a like, share it if you think it's helpful to any of your friends. Hit the bell, because I'm going to do a lot more of this. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. But thanks for taking the time to watch this. God bless.